Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is Dr. Audra Pittman, the superintendent for the Bayshore Elementary School District. I also have Mrs. Maya Baker, principal for the Bayshore School, on as a panelist. We are going to walk you through our presentation on our reopening plan for the 2020-2021 school year. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A function on your Zoom account. If you would like to ask your question verbally, we will have that opportunity at the end of the presentation. If you are unable to access this, you can also watch it on YouTube, and it is being recorded and will be posted following tonight's meeting.
And just to add to that, good evening, everyone. The questions, if you put them in the Q&A, which you should see the little Q&A bubbles at the bottom of your screen, those questions will be addressed after the presentation. Thank you.
And any questions that you may have submitted during the survey that you completed last week should be addressed in the presentation. But again, if we did not address it to your liking, please ask your question again, and hopefully we will be able to address it. So again, welcome tonight to the Bayshore Elementary School District's parent meeting regarding the reopening plan for 2020. So why are we doing this work? We want to remind you of what our mission and vision are for the Bayshore Elementary School District, which is to engage, educate, and empower. As we work through this process of reopening during this unforeseen time of COVID-19, we want to make sure that all of the plans that we put into place minimize the risks to ensure health and safety for students and staff and any visitors as, for example, parents that need to come onto campus. We also want to ensure that equitable access is available to all students to teaching and learning. We want to prioritize the needs of our most vulnerable students, provide consistent online experiences, and consistent usage of academic language protocols across instructional models. Throughout this school year, we also need to make sure that we are supporting emotional well-being of our students and staff, knowing that this is an unprecedented time, and we want to address any interrupted learning that has occurred since March through acceleration. There are guiding principles that will guide us through the work that we put together in order to roll out our plan. The number one is safety. As I stated, we will take the health and well-being of the Bayshore community as our top priority, and we will work to mitigate the risks to protect the health of everyone in our school community, and especially the most vulnerable members of our community. We recognize that no single action is going to eliminate the risk of COVID-19, but we're going to work with our students and staff to implement interventions that will reduce the risk of spread. We will use the San Mateo County Office of Education pandemic framework, public health policy, and medical professional advice to guide all of our decisions. We will take into consideration the whole child. In holding true to our mission to grow engaged hearts, educated minds, and empowered visionaries, we want to embody the belief that this experience will help us all grow, and we will do it together. With that said, we will interpret safety guidelines, what we know to be true about children's learning, and their overall needs, both emotionally and academically, as we develop and roll out our reopening plans. We will consider the whole child throughout this entire process. We will have a focus on equity. We believe that the meaning of equity is acknowledging students' differences and giving them what they need when they need it to be successful. It also means staying focused on outcomes, both academic and developmental. A commitment to equity should not result in lowering standards or choosing to serve one group of students over another. When schools and systems are focused on equity in opportunities and excellence in results for all children can benefit. Addressing the needs of the most marginalized learners requires recognition of the inherent value of diversity and acknowledgement that educational excellence requires a commitment to equity in the opportunities provided to students and the resulting outcomes. We would like learning in person. We shall offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible in accordance with our state and county health guidelines. If and when we are able to be together in person, we will monitor health guidelines and do everything we can to remain open for in-person learning. Relationships. We will emphasize the importance of the Bayshore community and building relationships by maintaining a space to connect and learn in a meaningful way. We will balance the need for students to have academic structure with the need for students and staff to establish new ways of being together and continue to see school as a place of support and relationships with additional emphasis on mental health and well-being. Access. We will work to ensure equitable access to learning for all of our families. We understand there is a vast range of needs in our community, and we seek to ensure that all students have equitable access to materials and resources. And finally, communication. As the situation changes, we will continue to be in open dialogue with our students, staff, and families. We will share all available information with the community about health guidance changes, alterations to our reopening plan, and shifts in how we carry out the guidelines listed in this plan in a timely manner. Communication with families will be clear and regular. We always invite families to let us know what they see at home with their children and articulate their concerns and needs. The process that we went through in order to make this reopening plan happen was we started out with a leadership work group. We sent out parent and staff surveys, and then we had subcommittee work groups that worked on the individual plans in relationship to the pandemic framework, as well as our instructional learning, which we will share with you tonight. In June and in July, we asked the question that if we were able to reopen in August, but with physical distancing requirements, and you were given the choice of continuing to do at-home online distance learning or to bring your students to a physically distanced or hybrid learning model, which would you choose? In June, 64% of our families said that they would have chosen physical distancing and in-person learning, while 36% said that they would have chosen to keep their kids at home 100% of the time for at-home distance learning. When we resent the survey last week to plan for our August opening, that shift had occurred, and now 46% of our parents would like physical distancing in person in the hybrid model, while 54% are requesting 100% full at-home distance learning. Tonight, I will walk you through the framework pillars as well as our instructional learning model. We will start with instructional learning, and then we will work through the 4 pillars of health and hygiene, face coverings, physical distancing, and gatherings in order to have a safe return to school. And these framework pillars were developed in conjunction with the San Mateo County Office of Education's pandemic framework. Instructional learning. For the 2021 school year, the state of California is requiring that districts can decide the model best for them based on their ability to follow state health guidelines and their local county phases of reopening, where phase 1 is considered shelter in place, which we are not currently in, but we were in March. You must have a daily check-in with students, whether it's in person, Zoom, or phone, and the state guidelines for the minimum instructional minutes are kindergartners must receive a minimum of 3 hours per day, 1st through 3rd grades must receive a minimum of 3 hours and 50 minutes, and grades 4 and above must receive a minimum of 4 hours. We will be offering 2 models this year. Distance learning, which is 100% at home. There will be a daily check-in all 5 days via Zoom with your teacher. Projects and assignments will be worked on throughout the day, and small group instruction will be scheduled throughout the day in addition to the daily check-in. If you chose the hybrid model, we will be starting in distance learning on August 17th. Once we are able to transition to having students on campus, your students will be on campus 4 days a week for 2.25 hours, whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon, and distance learning will occur the remainder of the day. Small group support will be scheduled when students are not on campus. The timeline is that 100% of students will start in distance learning on August 17th, at least through August 28th. During this time, we will evaluate our systems and the overall community to determine if it is safe to transition to the hybrid model for families who have chosen that option. We will schedule individual appointments to pick up Chromebooks and or iPads from August 5th through August 14th for 100% of our students. Every student and family is expected to check in during the individual appointments to make sure that everybody can get online and can navigate through the distance learning process. Every family who has selected hybrid will get a call from the school to discuss their additional needs beyond the distance learning model. Step 1, our target is 0% of our students on campus. This is where we will be starting August 17th. In-class instruction, there will be none. Suspend all in-class instruction for all grades and students. Remote instruction will occur for all students. Step 2 will be the next step after we are able to involve students on our campus. There will be limited K-8 accessibility, up to 4 days a week instruction available. These are our most vulnerable students, students with IEPs, students with language learning needs, or students or families experiencing hardships. Remote instruction will occur for the majority of our other students. Step 3 is approximately 25 for students on our campus. In-class instruction will occur for 2 days a week at half a day, These are not only the students with IEP, 4 days a week will continue for the students with IEPs, the students with language learning needs, and students experiencing hardship. And then 2 days a week will be available for any family that has selected the hybrid model. All families that have selected the distance learning model will continue with distance learning. Step 4 is when we get to approximately 50% of our students on campus. This is when all K-8 students who have selected the hybrid model will be on campus 4 days a week for half a day. Again, all families that have chosen distance learning will remain in distance learning for the remainder of the year. Step 5 is when we get 100% of our students on campus, and unfortunately, that will not occur in the 2021 school year. We will not be having 100% of our students on campus during this school year due to what is going on in our community. Next, I want to walk through when we actually do have people on campus, whether it's when we open up and it's just staff, or when we are having our one-on-one technology appointments, or if parents are coming in to do school business, or when we are finally in our hybrid model where students are actually on campus. The 4 pillars that exist within the framework, the first is health and hygiene. This includes daily hygiene routines, temperature taking, essential protective equipment, cleaning, indoor ventilation, and limiting the sharing of materials and equipments. For daily hygiene routines, there will be signs around campuses and other messages reinforcing daily hygiene routines. They will be disseminated and encouraged throughout various methods of communication. There will be hand sanitizer at every entrance that must be used, as well as at the entry to every classroom. And every classroom has a sink for students and staff to wash their hands. There will be daily health checks, including taking the temperature of every student prior to them entering campus. And every person entering the campus will have their temperature taken prior to doing school business. If they register at 100 degrees or higher, they will be sent home and not allowed to come to school. Essential protective equipment, which includes face coverings, hand sanitizer, disinfecting wipes, gloves for specific activities, cleaning materials, etc., will be provided by the district for all staff. Classrooms and office spaces will be supplied with waste baskets, tissues, and CDC-approved sanitizer. Cleaning. In between the 2 cohorts, staff will clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces in common areas and all classrooms. Common areas and restrooms will be cleaned and disinfected multiple times a day on a 2-hour rotating schedule. Frequently touched surfaces in the school include, but are not limited to, door handles, light switches, sink handles, bathroom services, tables, and chairs. Indoor ventilation. We have new filters that are being installed the week of August 3rd. We will replace them during winter break, and we will replace them again during spring break. Some of our classrooms have, all of our classrooms have air conditioning, but some do not have outside doors. And so if a teacher requests, or if the students in the class request a fan, we will provide that. And then the filters that we are using are MERV 13. Limiting sharing of material and equipment. Materials and equipment will not be shared. All students will have their own cubbyhole storage container to store their materials in during the day, and all electronics will be checked out to individual students and will not be shared. Face coverings. Once students are on campus, we will provide lesson plans for students to learn the rationale, routines, and reinforcement about wearing face coverings. We will follow the Department of Health guidelines regarding types of face coverings, and we will provide extra face coverings for staff and students who need them. All staff, from students from kindergarten through 8th grade, and all campus visitors must wear a face covering to school while walking across school grounds and in any common area on the campus. Should someone forget a mask will be provided prior to entering the campus. If they refuse to put on the mask, they will not be allowed to enter the campus. All staff will use approved face coverings. During class time, teachers are encouraged to implement the following for wearing face coverings while in-class sessions are in place. For kindergartners, 25% of the instructional time. First grade is 50%. Second grade is 75%, and 3rd through 8th grade is 90%. This is a minimum. Many of our students are already wearing their masks for extended amounts of time, but this is an allowance due to the age of children. Physical distancing. We are reorganizing our locations and campus to maintain 6-foot distancing. Areas will be marked on campus, and we will be in instructional cohorts. We are utilizing the stable cohort model, which reduces mixing as much as practical. Physical distancing and face coverings are required, and it still enables contact tracing. This is a model classroom that is set up. You can see that the tables are set apart to where every student is a minimum of 6 feet apart from the other student. What is not included in this picture is that there will be plexiglass sneeze guards that will be put on the middle of every table should 2 students sit at one table as an extra precaution while they're wearing their face masks to still separate the two. There will be signs placed around the school that include the following as an example. Which includes signs like this: keeping 6-foot distance, cover for cough, face mask required before entry. There will be 6-foot separation stickers so that students and adults know exactly where to stand and how to maintain away from each other. Limiting gatherings. Non-essential gatherings will be provided virtually. For example, but not limited to, we will continue to have our morning circle, but it'll be shown on Bayshore TV. We will continue to have Student of the Month, but it'll be via a Zoom webinar. We will continue to have assemblies, but they will be via a Zoom webinar as well. PE and music will still be offered. They will be virtual and incorporated into the student's schedule. Now we are open for questions, so I am going to hand it over to Mrs. Baker to see if there were any questions. I did notice a couple of hands raised.
Yes, so Maya, I'm going to allow you to talk. You had your hand up, so I'm going to open this to you. Did you have a question? Okay, I guess we are going to come back to her. There is a question in the chat. Are there any situations where the school could or would require a student to get COVID testing?
I do not know the formal answer into whether or not we can require COVID testing, but what we can require is somebody to quarantine and not come onto campus for 14 days. We would have to work with the county health officials on whether or not somebody needs to be tested or not. It is not in our purview to require somebody to be tested, but if we believe that they have been exposed and might be able to spread it to other people on our campus, then we can require them to not step foot on our campus.
All right, there are no questions in the chat and I don't see any hands raised. Oh, here we go. Can we get a copy of this slideshow?
Yes, we are recording it right now and it'll be posted as well as we will email it out to all of our families.
Are there any updates with Boys and Girls Club for when kids are off campus? I'm going to go ahead and answer that to the best of my ability. We're working together with them to provide childcare for families that need it. Their staffing is a lot of college students who are also now dependent on finding out their school schedules. So there's a lot of staffing things to figure out, but we are definitely trying to work in conjunction with them and think creatively about how we can support our families who in the parent survey said that they would need some childcare. You want to add to that, Dr. Pittman?
No, just that, like you said, we are working with them and we are sure there will be some sort of opportunity for them to be offering opportunities for our families.
All right, next question. Is there an option to choose distance learning for the beginning part of the school year and switch to in-person learning towards the later part of the school year? Go ahead.
Okay, I will answer that. And yes, as we work through the year, if you have chosen distance learning and then we get to a point where we feel we are in the hybrid model and you feel that your child would benefit from being on campus, we can shift them to the hybrid model.
And just to clarify, everyone is, regardless of the need to be, people who've expressed the need to be in a hybrid model, everyone is starting off in distance learning. So the possibility of switching will be evaluated based on the safety to do that. Next question, if a student tests positive, will the whole class be quarantined?
Yes, when I send out this PowerPoint, I will also send what the governor's guidelines are in terms of case and contacts. And if somebody in a cohort tests positive, then yes, the entire cohort would shift to distance learning for the next 2 weeks.
What is the date that the kids will be back on campus? The kids will be back on campus. The start day of school, being ready to learn, is August 17th. But the week prior to that, we will have a schedule for kids to come in for training on Chromebooks if they need Chromebooks or headphones or hotspots. All of that training and pickup will occur the week prior. Okay. All right. Anyone, any hands up? Anyone want to venture to ask a question? Here we are. Shay, Antonio, what is your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hmm?
Okay, so for the families that have young siblings, for instance, myself and the two I have at home, one going into first grade and the other one going into third grade, do you have an alternative teaching method where if it will be difficult for me to have to sit down with both of them at the same time, will you provide an alternative so that I can only get to one of them and not the other and say like the Zoom session for the other student?
I'm going to speak to this, and then Dr. Pittman, if you want to add to it. We were making plans with asynchronous, so we have synchronous and asynchronous learning schedules. And one of the things that we were imagining for our families who are in a hybrid model is that you would want if you have multiple children, you would want them all on campus at the same time. That said, that's an assumption. And I think what I hear you saying is, it's hard for you to help both of your children at the same time. So your preference would be for your kids to be in separate blocks, which would mean that synchronous learning, which would be the learning online with their teacher, would be at different times for your kids, so that you use that time to help your other child. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a request that I will note this. If you want to call the school on Monday, I'll be there. We'll start to take those kinds of requests into consideration so that we can support you. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
And in addition to that, by us taking that request, what we will do to the best of our ability is to do just that, to put your children in 2 different blocks, so that the teacher, neither of them is online at the exact same time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Can students use their own iPads or Chromebooks? So because they're going to be at home, they can definitely use their own computers, iPads, Chromebooks, whatever they have. It is not necessary that the Chromebooks that kids can check out, we have one-to-one technology so that any child who does not have access to tech can come and check out an iPad or a Chromebook. But if you have that at home, that's great. You don't need to check it out at school. Will there be packets like last year or distance curriculum online? We've spent a lot of time talking about that. and feel that this is part of this synchronous learning with your teachers, and teachers getting more comfortable using Google Sites, Google Classroom to support students. It's going to mean there's not picking up of packets, but that said, there will definitely be supplies that your kids need, and our teachers are coming up with those lists of what they would like you to have at home. And then if there's other things that they need you to get that the school is supplying, that will have those to be handed out at the same time that people are picking up Chromebooks and other technology. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay. What is the timeline for my child to be able to return to 4 days a week on campus? Because they will be starting out virtual, correct? So just to clarify, because I think Amanda, tell me if I get this right. If I don't get it right, try again. So what is the timeline for your child to be able to return to campus in person 4 days a week? Yes, they will be starting out virtually. Everyone, as you can see in this diagram, we're all starting out in step 1. We are not starting out in a hybrid model. And step 2 is to support students who have language learning needs, families experiencing hardship, things like that, so that it's only 10% of students on campus. After that, step 3 is when we would start getting into 2 days a week of instruction for families who selected the hybrid model. So that's kind of where we're at this point. And we recognize that for the folks who did choose a hybrid, you will be getting a call so that we can start to identify how to support your needs with your kids at home, or with childcare, or with you having to go to work and things like that.
So Ms. Munoz, please expect a call from one of our staff members, hopefully by the end of this week, the beginning of next week at the latest. Because you chose hybrid, you may fall into the category of step 2, which would be either a student with an IEP, a student with a language learning need, or students and families experiencing hardship. And so if you and your family or your child falls under that category, then ideally we would hope that we would have your child back on campus by September 4th. And if not, then we would transition in. Unfortunately, we cannot give timelines on this date on how long it's going to take us to get from step 2 to step 3, or from step 3 to step 4, because what is triggering those are the number of positive COVID-19 cases, whether or not we are flatlining or decreasing, whether or not our systems are in place, whether or not we're on the monitoring list. So there's multiple data points that will determine how we move from step 2 to step 3. So unfortunately, we cannot give a timeline at this point, other than our goal and our ideal situation is to work through step 1 through August 28th. And then the Tuesday after Labor Day, we would transition into step 2 if all goes well.
How long are students expected to be online during school hours? And I'm gonna fold this with just defining something for clarity: synchronous and asynchronous learning. So the synchronous learning is, during a distance model, the time that your child is spending on the computer with classmates, with a teacher, in a small group. That is synchronous learning. We're all doing this together synchronously at the same time. Think of like synchronous swimmers, right? Asynchronous learning is the work that your child will be expected to do independently. So that's whenever it works for you and your schedule for your kids to be doing that work. As far as how long they're expected to be online, to be honest, we're trying to be creative and work on ways with our staff and do some professional development to develop our skill set at supporting kids to do work that involves not being online, so that children are not sitting there staring at a computer screen for hours at a time. Dr. Pittman, can you go back to the picture that had the hours, or is it on there? Where's that?
This one?
No, then I think it was the next one or the previous one. Oh, not this one, this one. So there will be a daily check-in via Zoom with teachers. And we're starting in distance learning, but that time on Zoom, on the computer, I think it's difficult to say exactly how much time they would be online. The last thing that any of us want is for your kids to be online for 6 hours a day. That's not a goal that we have. Learning should take place for about, maybe a little less than that amount of time. But the amount of time that teachers are spending online with their computer, with your kids, is closer to this 2.25 hours online. I hope I answered that clearly. Okay. Are we still giving school lunch, or are we sending them lunch? We will be supplying school lunch to children. It will not, unfortunately, be sitting in the lunch area eating delicious hot food cooked by our kitchen staff. We are all mourning that right now, but it is not safe to do that. It will be a grab and go lunch in a bag.
But we are working on different menu items so that they will not be sandwiches every day. So for example, it could be chicken and rice that we could put in a to-go box that can still be put into a bag. But to Mrs. Baker's point, all lunches will be grab and go. If you qualify for free and reduced lunch, you will need to enter your number the same way we've done in past years. If you choose to purchase a lunch, you still can do that. But again, you must pick it up and then take it with you to have off campus. You cannot eat it on campus.
Okay, if you have any other questions, keep them coming. One of the goals that I'll say we have for our kids is to really develop their independent learnership and their capacity to, whether we're in distance learning or a hybrid model, to really own their education and be engaged in the work that they're doing. So I'm just going to put that out there. That is a major goal for us as a community, and we're going to be working hard to provide that for your kids. Okay, let's see. Christy, I'm going to go ahead.
Yeah, so we have somebody who's going into first grade, and 2.25 hours in front of a screen seems quite substantial at one time. Would that be broken up in, 30-minute blocks, or is that 2.25 hours in front of the screen that they're expected to?
It is not 2.25 hours sitting in front of the screen in a row consecutively. No.
Okay, so it would be broken up into
yes
different blocks of time.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm being honest with you when I say that we haven't narrowed down what that looks like yet. It's still summer for most of our staff, and
right.
So we will be working through that the week of August 10th when all staff come back to work. But the ideal is, to Mrs. Baker's point, that it is not developmentally appropriate to have a child on a Zoom call or on the computer for 2.25 hours straight. We recognize it's hard enough for us as adults as we move from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that we are being developmentally appropriate as we are doing the distance learning with all of our students, whether they are in kindergarten or in 8th grade.
Yeah, I apologize if that wasn't clear. I think the last thing, as every parent is trying to limit screen time for children, that the institution that's educating your children would be saying, oh yeah, scratch all of that, they're going to be online all the time, is something we're trying to get away from. There's a lot of strategies, teaching strategies out there to work with students to do asynchronous work that has absolutely nothing to do with sitting in front of a computer. So I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. Is that helpful?
As we work through this and we bring in every child and every family to get set up, whether it's their own Chromebook or their own iPad, or they're checking one out from us, and making sure that they can access all of the apps and technology that we will be utilizing. We will also be sitting down and talking about what's the best way for them to be successful in your home, in terms of that we know that you can hopefully make happen, whether it's thinking about where they have a station that's designated specifically for them to do their work. We will be providing headphones for students so that they will have headphones when they're on the computer, so that they can drown out any other outdoor sounds, such as their siblings, if their siblings are home with them, or if their parents are working at home and are on their own Zoom call. So we will be working with our families and our students to try to make this the best situation that we possibly can, so that all of our students can be successful in this particular environment.
And then, sorry,
Don't apologize.
because she's 6, it's going to be hard to keep her engaged for more than 15 or 20 minutes in front of a screen. And so if the time of day is blocked out in lessons or whatnot, and I know that you probably don't have this arrangement or this schedule going forth, but I don't feel comfortable leaving her in front of a screen without a parent, myself or my husband, sitting there listening to what she's learning. And so if it does work out to where, say, in the morning they have a certain lesson, then after lunch they have a certain lesson, and in the afternoon it has a certain lesson, will there be some kind of, hey, heads up parents, we're doing this at this time, this at this time, and this at this time, so that the parents can reschedule our meetings that may conflict with the time that the student is supposed to be in the groups or online?
Are you saying, it sounds like you're asking, would a schedule be put out so that you knew what to expect in terms of time frames?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking ahead. I'm sure it's probably not something that has been vetted yet, but it's more of something where she's 6, so I don't feel comfortable leaving her in front of a screen without my husband or I or another adult in the room listening to what she's listening to. So for us, it would be advantageous to have a schedule sooner than later, so that we can schedule our own meetings around her learning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is the trickiest dilemma in all of this, whether it's for large school districts and small school districts. This is the really big challenge, is figuring out how to navigate that. So that's a really helpful question. And so yes, that is in the works. And I think knowing what to expect, quite some time, just having a routine and a set schedule is going to be a really good thing anyway, just in school in general. I think having that synchronous schedule will be definitely part of a daily routine, that you will always know what time. It'll be a routine. That has not been established yet, what that is, but there will definitely be a routine. And then as far as asynchronous learning, other larger school districts are doing some creative things around creating pods of families where there's someone who's supervising the kids, so that if you have work, you need to go to work, things like that. I mean, we're just paying attention to all these things that other communities are doing and seeing what we can hash out and capitalize on all the wonderful assets of Bayshore. So much appreciated that question, for sure. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, it was. And then I just have one last question. So we're starting off as a distance learning model August 17th, I think. If and when the kids transition to a hybrid model, what are the times? Like, what time are they expected to be at school? And I understand it's going to be a AM and a PM session, but what are the time frames for the AM and for the PM session?
I think we've been working on that, but it would be, if we're looking at, you're talking about step 3, like if we get to step 3, the teachers, in anticipation of this, if a teacher has 20 kids in their class, they've split them into 4 groups. So it would be 2.25 hours with each group that they have. Does that make sense? So if I'm
right, but she's asking, we're looking at probably around 8:30 in the morning till 10:50, And then the second group would be around 1 o'clock to 3:15.
Okay, thank you. And then there's, as far as Boys and Girls Club, for the kids that go in the morning and they are out at 10:50 or 11 o'clock, are parents just
Yes.
expected to pick them up at 11, or is there Boys and Girls Club from 11 to?
So we are working with Boys and Girls Club, and ideally when we get to a point where we are able to have the full hybrid model, ideally what we want is to have any of the families who need daycare through Boys and Girls Club, their kids to be at school in the morning session, and then they would transition directly from school at Bayshore to the Boys and Girls Club, and then the parents would pick them up from the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, so if the need is for your child to be or after school using Boys and Girls Club, they would be the morning group, and then if not, they would be the afternoon group.
Possibly. I mean, it all depends on the numbers, but that's what
Right.
we don't want to have to ask the Boys and Girls Club to be open at 8 in the morning, because that's difficult for them as well. And so we're trying to group our students so that they can open up at 11, and it can be a transition from us straight to them.
And then if you were part of the morning, if your child was part of the morning group, they would eat lunch at Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, they would get their lunch to grab and go with us if they're getting a lunch from us, or if they're bringing lunch, then they would transition to supervision through Boys and Girls Club.
And that would be on campus for K through 5?
It's actually would be for depending upon who needed the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Salvador. Are you ready? Thank you for your patience. If you're ready with your question.
Hello?
Yes, is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Edith. I'm sorry, it was under my father's name. This is Edith.
Okay, hi, Edith.
When you said Salvador, I was like just waiting. I was like, okay.
Okay.
I was just looking at the chart here, and it kind of answered my question that I was going to ask about the IEP classes. Like for Mateo, for instance, like his speech therapy and his OT.
All classes are starting out online. There's no instruction in the building during step 1.
Oh, okay, I missed all that. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, if and when it's safe to move to step 2, that's when Mateo would be a student who would be coming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got
Okay.
it. I didn't understand the chart, the step 1 step, because I just logged on like 5 minutes ago. Okay, I got it. I got it.
Okay, so I'm going to go back into our
Thank you.
So we are starting, just to clarify to Joy, we are starting in distance learning. We are not starting in a hybrid model. Everyone is starting in distance. So if you look at the chart that's up on the screen right now, it says suspend all in-class instruction for all grades and students. There's no in-class instruction, and it's all remote. Okay, next.
But yes, you are able to choose distance learning for the entire school year.
Yes.
If that is what you want. If you filled out the survey and you said, we want distance learning, we will enroll you in our distance learning model, and you will be allowed to have your son in distance learning for the entire school year.
So I'm going to put these two questions together. How many children in a classroom and how many days to come to school? So if it is safe to move to step 2, from step 2 to step 3, so that's assuming that we've cleared step 2 and are able to move to step 3, where 25% of students are on campus, it would be 2 days a week of instruction for families who've selected the hybrid model. And unless your child falls into the category that you see in step 3 of having an IEP or having language needs, and those 2 days would be 2.25 hours a day for 4 days a week. That's 4 days a week. Okay. What will testing look like for students in distance learning?
So can I ask a clarification? Do you mean normal assessments within a class, or do you mean state testing?
I mean state testing in distance learning.
Both. Okay, so for state testing, we don't know if that is going to be, I'm going to assume it's still going to happen this year. We are not sure what that's going to look like. There's still unknowns when it comes from the state and federal government on what will be required of us when it comes to the normal state tests for 3rd through 8th grade and again in 11th. So unfortunately, I cannot answer that particular question. When it comes to assessments within the class in a distance learning model, our teachers are working through strategies to where they can do formative assessments and summative assessments with our students. And so I don't have the final answer because it's going to look a little bit different for each teacher and for each individual grade level, because in a Zoom phone call, they could, for example, assess their reading with the student reading to them via the Zoom meeting. So we will have more around assessment after we meet with our teachers the week of August 10th, and we start to roll this out to all of our students.
Okay, so with instruction being offered 4 days a week, if we were in the hybrid model, Wednesdays were strictly distance learning. Yes, that is correct. So there is no time that Wednesdays are for Zoom meetings, PD for teachers, staff meetings. It is not going to be a time that kids are on campus. Let's see. Any other questions? You're asking such fantastic questions. These are great questions.
So if there are no more questions, then we will close up the meeting for this evening. You have, Shay Antonio raised their hand, so we'll let Shay ask a question before we sign off.
Hello?
Hi,
Hello.
Shay.
Hi. Will you be giving students a standardized test at the beginning of the school year to see how they progressed from the previous year, and then cater according to where they're at from the previous year for this year?
We will be giving them an assessment, yes, at the beginning of the year to find out where they are so that we can see if they are still on target or if we need to accelerate their learning to get them back on target.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to just, also express in distance learning that as this is what we're starting school with in distance learning, it's really important, if you have not already done so, to think about spaces where your child or children can work that is quiet and comfortable and conducive to learning. If they have a desk, if they have any needs, just, things to think about as we move into this model. And I see one more hand, unless somebody, oh no, that was just Shay. I'm going to put your hand down. Okay. Any other questions?
So Edith raised her hand, or Salvador, and I apologize for the barking.
No problem.
Okay.
Because I came in late. So the classes that are going to be online, what are the hours? From what time to what time are they going to be doing the online home schooling, their daily day for the step 1?
The teachers will be sending out a routine schedule to, I think that was Shay's point. I'm not sure if that was Shay or Christy who was talking about the importance of, knowing what the schedule is going to be so that parents can plan. So there will be a specific schedule that we're working on what those hours are right now for the kids who are broken into these 4 groups within each class. Does that answer your question, Edith?
Yes, that does. So they're working on a schedule, then we'll see what it is. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for asking questions. Any question that wasn't asked, if you can send an email to either Mrs. Baker or myself. Our email addresses are on our website. We will post this on our website, and we will also post the presentation so that you can have, and I will translate the presentation into Spanish and Chinese as well for anyone who needs it in another language. Once again, I want to thank everyone for giving of their time this evening. And I will also follow up with a newsletter that I've been sending out that outlines all of this information as well. I hope that everyone has a wonderful evening, and thank you for being a part of the Bayshore community.
Thank you, everyone. Hug your kids. Tell them we said hi.